Tensions between the U.S. and Iran continue to rise. This morning, President Trump posted on Truth Social that Iran needs to make a deal with the U.S. and that a massive fleet of U.S. ships are headed to the Middle East. The president saying that that fleet is, quote, ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence if necessary. As more ships arise, U.S. Central Command announced U.S. forces will conduct a multi-day military exercise in the Middle East starting today. Well, this latest threat comes weeks after protests broke out across Iran.
Due to an internet blackout and no journalists present, there is little information coming from Iran about the protests, including an accurate death toll. We're now joined by journalist Roxana Saberi. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Roxana, you're a co-contributor to this report published this week by Time magazine that said that more than 30,000 people were killed over 2 days. It's quite unbelievable. Tell us more about who provided those figures and where these sources came from.
Yeah, I worked with two other journalists for this Time magazine article. We had two sources inside the Interior Ministry who provided the statistic that at least 30,000 people were killed on January 8th and 9th, which was the peak of the regime's bloody crackdown on these protesters in Iran. And these officials told my colleague that they had so many bodies, they actually ran out of body bags and they had to carry corpses in trucks. And another source is Dr. Emir Perasta, who's a doctor based in Germany. And he has compiled statistics from across hospitals in Iran and by frontline healthcare workers and others, he said. And they have received at least 30,000, they have registered 30,000 deaths of protesters. He said protest related, but mostly protesters at hospitals across Iran. And that was as of last Friday.
Oh, my goodness. You know, when we look back at history, the only time that we've seen this happen where 30,000 people have been killed in 2 days was during the Holocaust, when 33,000 Ukrainian Jews were gunned down in a ravine. Why do you think the situation is not getting more international attention, you know, particularly from groups like the UN or the ICC at this point?
It's a good question. I know the UN human rights reporters had spoken out about the issue last week, but I would like to see more attention given to the massacre that happened in Iran. And I know a lot of Iranians inside Iran and outside would like that as well. I think part of it is for a long time, for several days, there was almost an 100% communications blackout coming from Iran because the regime had cut off internet and telephone communications to carry out this massacre. And now images and accounts have been trickling out, and they're just so graphic and so heartbreaking. And you see these images and stories of parents searching for their children among piles of corpses and morgues and finding them and breaking down and crying. And I get lots of images also of protesters who have been killed and just the brutality, getting shot in the head. I mean, doctors have said that many of the protesters were targeted in the face, neck, eyes, even the genitals. I mean, these horrific stories of brutality. And Iranians really hope that their stories continue to be told because they're still fighting for some very basic rights, and many of them want to overthrow this regime.
Right. Yeah. It's just horrific. Outside of the tens of thousands who've been killed, there are reports thousands of people are being held in jails across Iran. We know you were personally jailed in Iran for 2 years. Give us some context to what these people are dealing with.
Yeah, and in fact, the human rights activist news agency of Iran said that there are about, just this morning, 42,500 protesters in jail. That is, wow. That is unbelievable. And yeah, when I was in prison, what I experienced was what many prisoners experience, and now it's probably 1,000 times worse. There's overcrowding right now in prisons. These prisoners are cut off from their loved ones, very little or no access to lawyers to represent them, no due process. We're expecting, sham trials. Many of them have been forced to make confessions on TV, confessing that they committed some kind of crime. And the Iranian officials have already said that these protesters, many of them could be convicted of muhabere, which means waging war against God, which could lead to the death penalty. So there's a lot of concern also about torture and people dying in prison or getting convicted and then executed without the outside world knowing.
Roxana, we so appreciate you being here. This is just, it's obviously horrific, but I'm glad that you're one of the people that is checking in and reporting on this topic. So thank you for being with us this morning.
Thanks so much for covering Iran.
Yeah.
Thank you.